I never thought a candlelight dinner would be the final illusion of my marriage. It was a Thursday, the last calm one I'd know for a while. The kind of calm that only exists before an earthquake. I was stirring marinara sauce when I realized Mia had been in the shower for nearly 40 minutes. Not just in the shower, music playing, phone on speaker, and laughter leaking out from behind the bathroom door. I could hear her voice, soft, flirtatious, like the early years when she'd whisper to me between sips of wine in our first crumbling apartment. But it wasn't for me anymore. The thought lingered as I set the table, adjusted the place settings like I always did on our birthday. Every detail had to be perfect. Candle flames low enough to flatter, pasta plated in perfect swirls. I even chilled that Spanish rose she loved, the one she always joked about drinking too much of at that vineyard in Girona. She came out of the bathroom with her hair up, cheeks flushed, and eyes that didn't meet mine. "Sorry, work call," she mumbled, dropping her phone onto the counter. I smiled, told her she looked beautiful, and poured the wine. My chest felt hollow, like something had been scooped out and I hadn't noticed until it was already too late. Mia had just turned 32. We'd been married 6 years, together almost 9. I'm 35. My name's Dean, and I run a custom furniture company in Portland, mostly reclaimed wood, boutique stuff. Started it in my garage a decade ago. Now I've got a team of 7 and 2 waitlists 6 months long. I was never rich, not by her family's standards, but I was finally making good money, and for a long time, that was enough. Or I thought it was. The next evening, she asked if she could have her family over on Sunday for an early birthday brunch. Her dad, the judge, her mom, a gallery curator, her younger sister Chloe, and her brother-in-law Nathan. I said of course. I always said yes to her family, even when they stared too long at my tattoos or laughed too hard at their own lawyer jokes like I wasn't in the room. Mia had always made me feel like she chose me despite them, that she fought for us, that she wanted a life not dictated by pedigree and old money. I believed that for too long. Sunday came fast. I woke up early, made fresh scones, marinated lemon rosemary chicken, cleaned the patio, mowed the lawn, wiped down the outdoor fireplace she insisted we install last year. Mia handled the place settings. I watched her cut fruit with machine-like focus, her smile too perfect, her tone too cheerful. Something was off, and I felt it in my bones. Half an hour before everyone arrived, I realized we were 2 chairs short. She asked me to check the attic. "Don't forget the blue cushions," she added, tossing me the keys. I climbed up, yanked down the hatch, and found the chairs near the back under an old dust cover. As I started to pull them out, I heard voices. Laughter. It floated up from the side yard where the French windows were open. I heard Chloe first. "He's going to crack when you tell him." Mia answered, voice low but clear. "He won't even know what hit him. The lawyer said if I time it right, I can claim partial interest in the warehouse too. The valuation puts it over $900K now. We play it smart. I walk away with almost half." I froze, half crouched behind insulation rolls and a box of holiday lights. The air around me turned static. I should have gone down. Should have thrown open the window and demanded answers. But I didn't. I stayed silent, listening like a coward, or maybe like a man calculating the weight of an explosion. Chloe let out a sharp laugh. "And he's still making you breakfast. You're a fucking magician." Mia chuckled. "He still thinks we're just going through a rough patch." There was a pause. Then Chloe said, "Does Leo know you haven't told him yet?" My stomach bottomed out. Leo. I'd seen his name pop up on her screen a few times over the past couple of months, once at 1:12 a.m. when she thought I was asleep. She said it was a junior partner at her firm. Now I knew. "He's patient," Mia replied, almost dreamy. "But not forever." They kept talking, but the blood in my ears drowned it out. My hands clenched the cushion fabric like rope. I stayed there too long, trying to convince myself that I'd misheard, that I was imagining it. But I wasn't. I carried the chairs down slowly, set them up like nothing had happened. When her family arrived, I shook hands and smiled, poured orange juice like a perfect host. When Chloe hugged me and thanked me for the spread, I almost broke a glass in my hand. Through Eggs Benedict and mimosas, I watched Mia. I studied the way her fingers grazed my shoulder when she passed behind me. The small laugh she gave at her father's dry jokes. Her act was flawless. But I saw it now for what it was, a performance. Every gesture rehearsed. Her father asked about my company's expansion. I told him we'd opened a second studio in Selwood. He gave a polite nod and said, "Still working with your hands, huh?" The old jab, repackaged. Later, as we cleaned up, she kissed my cheek and said, "You always make things so beautiful." I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. That night, I lay awake next to her in bed, her back turned, breathing soft and even. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning in lazy circles and thought, this isn't a marriage anymore. It's a countdown. By Monday morning, I had a plan. I made a call to Ingrid, my business manager and silent partner. I told her I needed to restructure our ownership agreement, just in case. She was hesitant until I told her everything. Then she went quiet. Whatever you need, I'm in. That day, I moved the business bank account to a new institution. Started documenting everything. I kept smiling at home, pretending. Laughing when Mia showed me Pinterest boards for our dream kitchen reno. But each time I touched her, it was like pressing against a mannequin. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the fact that I didn't know when she stopped being real. When did Mia become someone who could smile at me while planning to carve up my life behind my back? But I wasn't going to rage. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to confront her. No, I was going to build something better. Revenge, like furniture, is all about craftsmanship. And I've always been a damn good carpenter. By Wednesday, I had memorized every creak in the hardwood between our bedroom and her office. Mia had started taking calls at night, claiming they were East Coast clients on deadline. She wore her robe looser than usual, her voice softer, more breathless than I remembered. I would lie in bed pretending to sleep, listening to her low murmurs through the wall. Occasionally, I'd hear her laugh, light, practiced, and not for me. I didn't ask. I didn't confront. I recorded. Our state was one of the few where single-party consent made it legal. That didn't make it easier. There's a specific kind of sickness that comes with hearing your wife whisper things to another man she hasn't said to you in years. You're the only one who understands me. I wish I was waking up next to you instead. I hate pretending, but I have to play the game a little longer. Each sentence drove a splinter deeper. I stayed silent. Because silence, used right, is a weapon too. That Friday, I told Mia I was heading out of town for a trade show. Rented a room at a boutique hotel across the river. Brought my laptop, my phone, and a folder packed with everything I'd collected. Financial records, call logs, screenshots, and a spreadsheet detailing every cent I'd invested in our marriage. Including the boutique condo down payment I'd made entirely from my pre-marriage savings. That night, I met someone for drinks. Her name was April, a brand strategist I'd met at a marketing seminar a few months back. We'd emailed a few times about website redesigns. Nothing more. Until now. We didn't hook up. That's not the kind of story this is. We talked for hours, mostly about business, a little about regret. I told her my story in pieces, vague at first, then sharper as the cocktails poured in. She didn't flinch. Just nodded like she'd seen a version of this play out before. You've got the receipts, she said. Use them. But don't rush. You want it clean, right? I did. Before we said goodnight, she handed me a card. When you're ready to burn it down, call me. I'm good at making things look perfect before they fall apart. It wasn't flirtation. It was strategy. And I respected that. Back at the hotel, I couldn't sleep. At 2:13 a.m., I opened my email and sent a message to someone I hadn't talked to in years, my sister, Lila. We hadn't been close since our mother died. She thought Mia was manipulative from the start. Called her a social chameleon with teeth. I ignored her. Told myself she just didn't like being replaced as the woman I trusted most. But family remembers. She replied within 10 minutes. I was waiting for this. Saturday morning, I sat across from Lila in a corner booth at the Rusty Spoon, the diner our parents used to take us to every weekend growing up. She wore a hoodie, no makeup, hair in a braid. Still looked like she could call me out on every lie before I even tried speaking. I didn't sugarcoat anything. Gave her the rundown, Mia's plans, the affair, the slow siphoning of assets. Lila listened with her arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes darker than I remembered. Let me guess, she said. She still acts like she's doing you a favor by staying married? I nodded. You know what this is, right? She asked. I shrugged. She's not just cheating. She's curating a narrative. She's building a version of herself she can sell to whoever's next. And that version can't have a husband who builds tables with his bare hands. That's too humble, too real. She needs a story. So she's making one. You? You're the conflict she's going to overcome in her TED Talk. I almost laughed. Almost. We finished our coffees. Before she left, Lila leaned in and said, Don't try to win her back. Don't get closure. Just win. That night, I returned home. Mia greeted me at the door like nothing had changed. Kissed my cheek. Said she missed me. She wore that same silk robe from her birthday. I kissed her back, then excused myself to shower. The mirror fogged over as I stood under the water, letting it burn against my skin. When I stepped out, I wiped the glass and stared at myself. This was no longer about heartbreak. This was about exposure. I spent the next 3 days laying groundwork, quietly shifting business assets, calling vendors to renegotiate timelines, updating passwords, backing up everything. On Wednesday, Mia brought up our upcoming anniversary. Asked if I wanted to book the same cabin in Ashland we'd gone to 2 years ago, the one with the clawfoot tub and the forest view. I told her it sounded perfect. She smiled and said, "I'm glad we're coming back to each other." I said nothing, just smiled. 2 hours later, I met Leo. Not on purpose. I was picking up specialty walnut planks from a supplier outside of town. As I turned the corner, I saw a silver coupe parked outside. Leaning against it was a man in a charcoal peacoat, talking loudly on his phone. He said her name. Clear as day. "I'll talk to Mia when she's alone. She said she's planting the seeds already." I stopped walking. She's got him completely convinced it was just a rough patch. Idiot doesn't even see it coming. I took a picture of him, the car, the license plate. He never saw me. I drove home in silence, my grip tight on the wheel. The anger wasn't hot, it was cold. Focused. The kind of anger you don't scream from rooftops. The kind that builds scaffolding in your head. That night, I emailed myself the photo with a timestamp and subject line, "New exhibit." Then I printed it, slid it into a folder, labeled it Exhibit 3. Exhibit 1 was the conversation with Chloe. Exhibit 2, the financial statements showing transfers out of our joint account. Exhibit 4. I was still working on that, but I had a plan. And the next move? It would be hers. Because when someone's building a trap, the cruelest thing you can do is let them think it's working. The next morning, Mia left early for work. Said she had a deposition prep meeting. Kissed my cheek in a blur and backed out of the driveway while adjusting her sunglasses. I stood by the front window and watched her until the taillights disappeared. Then I got to work. I spent that Thursday reconstructing the narrative she'd so carefully tried to bury. Not with fire or fury, but with order. Structure. Like a project I'd build in my shop. Slow, deliberate, clean. Exhibit 4 began with a financial forensics trail. Mia and I shared a business credit card for home-related purchases. That card was mostly used for things like buying paint or furniture when we were renovating the kitchen last fall. I never really looked at the statements, she always paid them online. But this time, I downloaded the last 6 months of activity. 3 separate charges to a hotel downtown, the Madra, a boutique place with a rooftop bar and only 25 rooms. Same room each time. Same weekday pattern. 2 nights each visit. I cross-referenced the dates. They coincided with legal conferences she'd mentioned, ones I hadn't questioned because I'd been buried in a showroom remodel. The invoices were labeled vaguely, event suite or conference catering. She'd even added notes for the statements, probably thinking I'd never look. Client debrief. Legal Q&A lunch. I printed those pages, circled the charges in red, added them to the folder. Then I drove to the Madra. It wasn't subtle. I wore a baseball cap, sunglasses, and carried a messenger bag like I was scouting the place for a photo shoot. The lobby smelled like grapefruit and cedarwood. Jazz floated through the air like it was paid to be elegant. At the front desk, I said I'd recently gotten married there and had lost the room details. Asked if they could help me find which suite had the tall windows and navy curtains. The concierge was polite but firm. "Sorry, sir, we can't release any guest information." "I understand," I said. But it was around mid-March. Suite 304, I think. Her fingers paused just long enough on the keyboard to confirm it. Suite 304. I didn't need pictures. I didn't need hotel surveillance. Just knowing the room, the frequency, the familiarity of it, it painted enough of a picture. When I would hang up when the time was right. On the way back, I got a call from Ingrid. "Hey, the client from that Ashland remodel emailed. Said they saw Mia at a gallery event with some guy named Leo. Asked if you two were still together." I pulled over. "What did you say?" "Told them I don't discuss personal stuff, but thought you'd want to know." I stared out the window at the highway stretching west. My hands felt steady, like I'd been bracing for this all along. The threads were weaving together now. The affair wasn't just emotional. It wasn't even just physical. It was public. She was building a new narrative, one where I didn't exist. But I wasn't gone yet. That night, I set the table for 2. Candles. Pasta again. A replica of the dinner I'd made 2 weeks earlier. She walked in with a shopping bag and immediately wrinkled her nose at the smell. Again, she asked, "Babe, you're going to turn into marinara." I laughed, kissed her cheek, poured the wine. As we ate, I asked about her day. She talked about a client meltdown, some firm drama. She didn't mention the gallery, didn't mention Leo. I waited. As we rinsed plates, she turned to me suddenly and said, "Do you ever feel like we're in a rut?" I met her gaze, searching her eyes for a flicker of guilt. There was none. "Sometimes," I replied, "but I think we just need something to shake us out of it." She smiled like she believed me. After she went to bed, I stayed up in the living room, looking over the folder. Exhibits 1 through 4 were lined up now, crisp and labeled. I added a new page, a photo of her and Leo at the gallery from the client's social media, zoomed and dated. Exhibit 5. That weekend, I invited Mia's family for a surprise brunch. Told her I wanted to reconnect with them, that I'd been too withdrawn lately. She agreed without much hesitation. Sunday arrived. I grilled lamb chops, toasted ciabatta, and made the frittata she used to love. The table looked like a magazine cover. She wore a pale green dress and a pearl necklace. Her mother noticed. "Beautiful," she said, touching Mia's shoulder. "I haven't seen you wear this since the wedding tasting." Mia blushed. Felt like dressing up. I watched her across the table, careful and controlled. Chloe and Nathan made small talk about the housing market. Her dad asked about the business again, but this time with more curiosity than sarcasm. I steered the conversation toward memories. Asked them about childhood vacations. They opened up, laughed. The mood softened. Then Mia said, "Dean's actually planning something special for our anniversary." All heads turned. "Oh," her mom asked. "What is it?" I smiled gently. "It's a surprise." Mia beamed. "He's being very mysterious, but I have a feeling it'll be amazing." She squeezed my hand under the table. I didn't flinch. After brunch, I offered to do the cleanup. She kissed me and went to shower. As I scraped plates into the trash, I overheard her dad on the phone in the den. "Yeah, she's playing it perfectly. He's got no clue. When she drops the papers, he won't see it coming." I froze. He was in on it. The old bastard had coached her through it all, probably advised her to delay until the warehouse valuation peaked. I knew he was a retired judge, but hearing him plot like a mafia consigliere twisted my stomach. That was the final nail. Exhibit 6. That evening, I called Lila again. "You good?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I'm ready. What's the next step?" I glanced at the calendar. "Anniversary dinner. 3 nights from now. You going to do it there?" "No," I said. "I'm going to do it before. Because if I waited too long, she might beat me to the punch. And I wanted this unraveling to be mine. My script. My stage." So I scheduled a meeting for Tuesday, with me as firm partner. And I brought the folder. The building where Mia worked was glass, steel, and ambition. Her law firm's offices took up the top 3 floors, each one more sterile and intimidating than the last. I'd only visited twice in 6 years, once to drop off a forgotten ID badge, and once for their winter mixer, where I stood in a corner nursing a drink while she introduced me as her creative husband who does the rustic thing. This time, I walked in with a purpose. The receptionist smiled politely. "Do you have an appointment?" "I do. With Elise Callahan," I said. She typed something. "You're Mr. Carter?" "That's me." 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from a woman in a tailored navy suit and glasses that looked too expensive to ever fog. Elise was the senior partner, Mia's mentor, advisor, and the gatekeeper of the promotions Mia had been clawing her way toward. "What can I help you with, Mr. Carter?" she asked, folding her hands. I placed the folder on the table. "I think it's time we discuss your associate Mia Walters." Off the record. She gave a small, practiced smile. "We don't typically." "Just look through the first few pages," I said. She opened the folder. The photos, financial statements, and call transcripts sat like landmines waiting for a misstep. She didn't say a word for a full 3 minutes. Finally, she looked up. "You're alleging she's been misrepresenting shared assets while planning a covert divorce, while using her connection to this firm to bolster her financial standing?" "She's done more than that," I said, calm. "She's committed professional misconduct. She falsified statements related to our joint holdings and used her relationship with me as leverage in client negotiations without disclosure." Elise's jaw tightened. "Do you have proof?" "Plenty, including recordings of her discussing how she planned to leverage our marital status for partnership consideration. That's not just unethical, it's leverage with intent to defraud." She sat back in her chair. Why are you bringing this to me? I met her gaze. Because I'm giving you the option to clean your own house before the media does. I have no interest in dragging your firm through the mud. But if she files those divorce papers first and this goes public, your name is going to be on every headline next to hers. Elise tapped her pen against her notepad. And what do you want? Nothing, I said. Not from you. Just a quiet heads up when she gets called into your office. Elise paused. You're not going to wait for her to make a move, are you? No, I replied. This isn't defense. It's demolition. She nodded once, slowly. You'll have your heads up. I stood, shook her hand, and left. 2 hours later, Mia texted. Hey babe, want me to grab anything from Trader Joe's on my way home? I stared at the screen, a bitter laugh in my chest. I replied. Just grab that rose you like. Felt like grilling tonight. 2 days later, our anniversary, everything unraveled. She came home to candlelight, again. The same meal, same wine. But this time, the place settings included something extra at her seat, a single red envelope. She noticed immediately. What's this? She asked, cautious. Open it, I said, sipping wine. She slid a finger under the flap and pulled out the letter. Her eyes skimmed the first few lines. Her entire face changed. This is from Elise. Keep reading. The letter stated that Mia was being placed on temporary leave pending an internal investigation regarding conflicts of interest and professional misconduct. It included phrases like possible breach of fiduciary duty and undisclosed personal gain. Mia dropped the letter like it burned her. What did you do? She whispered. I made sure the truth reached the right people. She stood up, her voice rising. You went to my job? My firm. You went to mine first, I said. Remember? When you told your lawyer you could take half my warehouse. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. And by the way, I added, Leo's wife says hi. That broke her. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling. You talked to Rachel? We had coffee. She showed me some interesting text messages from your gallery night. Her eyes welled with tears. Dean, this wasn't supposed to happen like this. You weren't supposed to get caught, I interrupted. She wiped her face. I was just scared. You were so busy. You barely looked at me anymore. I was working to build a future for us. I didn't think you'd understand what I wanted. I tilted my head. And what did you want, exactly? I wanted out without burning everything down, she whispered. But you're burning everything. No, I said, leaning forward. You lit the match. I just made sure the fire had a purpose. She sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she asked, so what now? I already filed the papers, I said. They'll be served next week. You can respond to your new attorney. Elise will likely be advising you to find one. She looked stunned. You really ended it? I rebuilt my life once before, I said. I can do it again. But this time, without you siphoning parts of it away in the background. And then, I dropped the twist she never saw coming. Also, just so you know, I sold the condo. Her eyes widened. What? You can't. That's a joint. Actually, I said, sliding another paper across the table, I bought it with inheritance money from my mother. Premarital. The deed's in my name. You just signed the refinance last year without reading it closely. She paled. I've already finalized the sale. Full cash offer. Closed escrow 2 days ago. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. You might try Chloe's guest room, I said, standing. I think she owes you that much. She stood, shaking now. Dean, I didn't mean to hurt you like this. But you did, I said. And now it's done. I walked past her toward the front door, grabbing my overnight bag. I didn't need to slam the door or shout. The silence said enough. As I drove to my new place, an airy one-bedroom above my workshop, I called Lila. It's done, I said. You okay? Not yet, I admitted. But I'm getting there. You want company? Maybe tomorrow. When I hung up, the road ahead felt cleaner. Not easy, but mine. And that was enough for now. 3 days after our anniversary, I woke up to a text from Mia at 6:08 a.m. I'm so sorry. Please, can we just talk? I turned off the screen and let the phone fall to the nightstand. Outside, the light crept through the blinds in soft slats, catching on the edge of the unpacked moving boxes and my dog's curled shape on the floor. A new place, clean and unassuming, above the woodworking studio I built from the ground up. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel threatening. It felt earned. I made coffee, took a walk, didn't answer. By noon, there were 8 more messages. My dad's furious. He says I should sue you for emotional distress. Elise won't return my calls. Dean, this is insane. You ruined everything we built. I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't think you were capable of this. That last one made me laugh. She never knew who I was. Not really. She thought she married a man who built chairs and sanded down imperfections. Someone who used tools because he lacked the intellect to navigate more refined circles. She mistook quiet for weak. But I've always known that the strongest parts of a house are the ones nobody sees. Later that day, I met with my attorney again. The paperwork was proceeding fast. Mia hadn't responded yet. Maybe she was still looking for a lawyer. Maybe she was still processing the fallout. Elise's firm hadn't issued an official statement, but according to Lila, who still had a friend clerking in the county office, there was an internal hold on Mia's cases. Partnership talks suspended. Future uncertain. Leo, on the other hand, had gone quiet. His wife Rachel had reached out once more, asking if I'd be willing to attend a support group with her. I said I'd think about it. For now, the thought of sitting in a circle and trading wounds felt heavy. But maybe someday. On the fourth day, I received a manila envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a letter, handwritten in blue ink on firm stationery. Dean, I don't expect forgiveness. And I know I'm the last person you want to hear from right now. I wanted to say it clearly, not through a screen. You were better to me than I ever deserved. You supported me, believed in me, saw a future I couldn't even see for myself. And instead of appreciating that, I saw you as a stepping stone. I let my ambition turn you into a placeholder. That's on me. I thought I was making smart decisions. I thought I could have everything without sacrificing anything. But what I really did was destroy the only real thing I had. Elise says I'll be lucky to keep my license. Chloe won't speak to me. My father won't stop shouting about lawsuits I can't afford. Leo disappeared. So here I am, alone. And maybe that's exactly where I need to be. You always said good carpentry wasn't about hiding the flaws. It was about working with them until the piece was stronger. I didn't listen. I wanted flawless. I didn't realize how brittle that makes something. I hope your next chapter is better. I hope it's honest. M. I folded the letter and tucked it in the back of a drawer. Not out of sentimentality, but as a reminder. Sometimes you keep the blueprints, not to rebuild the same house, but to remember which beams cracked first. The following week, I went to the support group. Rachel was already there. We didn't say much afterward, just a nod, a coffee, and shared silence. I saw Lila more. We started working together again. She'd studied design in college before dropping out. Now she was sketching pieces in the corner of my shop, helping me source new materials, building her own future from the sawdust and scraps. One night, we sat on the back steps of the workshop, drinking beer. You know, she said, I kept thinking you'd call earlier. Like, years earlier. I should have, I admitted. But you didn't, she said. Because you wanted it to work. And that's not weak, Dean. That's just hope. And hope makes idiots of all of us sometimes. I nodded. A month passed. The divorce finalized. Quietly. No courtroom drama. No dramatic declarations. Just signatures, notarized lines, and a slow unthreading of a life that had once been tangled too tightly. Mia moved out of the condo the same week the new owners took possession. I left a note on the counter. Lockbox code, 1943. Don't forget the laundry door sticks. Take what you need. Leave what you don't. No hard feelings. Just clean slates. I didn't wait to see if she replied. I didn't need to know. Instead, I put on my gloves and returned to work. The new line I'd been planning was already in progress. Sturdy shelves, oak benches, resin inlays with deep blue streaks that reminded me of rivers running through stone. A piece for every scar. A shape for every fracture. One of the last tables I made that spring had a small crack through its center. My assistant asked if I wanted to sand it out, maybe fill it. I ran a hand along the edge, feeling the groove. Leave it, I said. Sometimes the break is the best part. That weekend, I opened the shop for a small event. Clients, friends, a few strangers who'd seen our stuff online. There were fairy lights and cheap wine and the smell of cedar in the air. Rachel came. So did Lila. April, too, the strategist I'd had drinks with months back. She wore a black dress and brought a friend who was already asking about commissioning a conference table. After the crowd thinned, I sat in the corner, drink in hand, music playing low. The light swayed slightly in the wind. My dog curled at my feet, tail thumping against the wood floor like a heartbeat. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no epic love story, just space and silence, and finally, peace. I raised my glass to no one in particular, to solid foundations, and starting again.